For thousands of solo filmmakers, documentary shooters, and hybrid creators around the world, that camera has had one name since 2021: the Sony FX3. Now, as we are in the second half of 2026, something has shifted, quietly, through a regulatory filing in Shanghai that most people will never read, but that changes everything for everyone who has ever fallen in love with this camera. The Sony FX3 II isn't a rumor floating in a forum anymore. It's registered, and the countdown clock just started. Let's talk about why this feels different from every Sony FX3 II rumor that's come before it. Because for years, this camera existed only in speculation. Now it exists on paper, filed with a government agency that doesn't deal in maybes. On April the 24th, 2026, Shanghai Suoguang, Sony's manufacturing and registration partner, filed a new model carrying the ILME-FX prefix. That prefix matters enormously. It's not a generic code. It's Sony's reserved designation exclusively for cinema-line full-frame cameras, the same prefix worn by the original FX3 and the FX6 before it. This isn't an accessory. This isn't a lens. This is a cinema camera confirmed through manufacturing paperwork, not internet whispers. Once a camera clears this kind of regulatory registration, Sony's historical pattern points to an announcement window roughly 3 months later. Count forward from April the 24th and you land somewhere on or before September the 26th, which lines up precisely with the IBC trade show, one of the broadcast and film industry's biggest annual stages, and exactly the kind of platform Sony has used before to launch cinema-line products with maximum visibility. But timing isn't the only story here. Look at what else happened in that same April registration window. A second, completely separate model filed at the same time, believed to be an entry-level consumer camera. And just weeks earlier, in February 2026, Sony registered the ILCE7RM6, almost certainly the next A7R flagship. 3 cameras, 3 categories. All are moving through the pipeline within the same 8-week stretch. That's not a coincidence. That's Sony loading the chamber for what could be one of its most aggressive product years in recent memory. And there's a competitive trigger here too. Canon's EOS R6V launched on May the 13th, 2026, a camera engineered specifically to compete in the same compact full-frame video space the FX3 has owned since 2021. Sony filed their cinema camera registration 4 weeks before the Canon launch. Reading the room, responding to pressure, moving first where it counts, that's not bureaucratic timing. That's strategy. September feels less like a guess now. It feels like a plan. So what is this camera actually bringing to the table? Let's separate confirmed registration facts from credible expectations. First, the battery. The ILME-FX registration is listed with Sony's NP-SA100 battery, the same higher capacity cell that debuted with the A7R6. This is the first time the NP-SA100 has ever appeared associated with a cinema line registration, and it's paired with support for 30-watt USB-C power delivery charging. For filmmakers who've spent 4 years carefully rationing FX3 batteries through long shoot days, that upgrade alone could be transformative, with longer runtime, faster charging, and less anxiety about whether the battery survives the take. The registration also confirms Wi-Fi 6 support, modern, fast, reliable wireless connectivity that finally brings the FX3 line into 2026's streaming and remote monitoring standards. Beyond the confirmed registration details, credible industry sourcing points toward a sensor with improved dynamic range and refined color science, while likely retaining a similar resolution philosophy to the sensor that made the original FX3 such a low-light powerhouse. Rumors of a partially stacked sensor design aimed at faster readout and reduced rolling shutter have circulated consistently, though they remain unconfirmed at this stage. Thermal management is widely expected to improve significantly, addressing the original FX3's recording time limitations in its hottest modes. And professional audio, long and underappreciated strength of the FX series, is expected to take another step forward, potentially with refined XLR handling and improved monitoring options for multi-camera and event production work. There's also a naming debate worth mentioning. Some social chatter has floated the idea that Sony might call this camera the FX4 instead of FX3 II, opening a new tier above the existing FX3, rather than simply replacing it. It's a fair theory, especially with the FX2 already existing in the lineup, but the simpler, more historically consistent path, a direct FX3 Mark II successor, remains the most likely outcome. What we genuinely don't know yet: exact recording formats, viewfinder or LCD specifics, and final pricing. Those details will only surface at the actual announcement. Here's the part of the story that makes this announcement feel urgent rather than routine. The compact cinema camera space has never been more contested. Canon didn't stop at the R6V. Their EOS C50, launched specifically engineered to challenge the FX3's dominance, smaller and lighter than Canon's own C7, deliberately positioned as a bridge between cinema EOS and their consumer R series, with a feature set clearly built around one goal: dethroning Sony's compact cinema king. And then there's Nikon, a name that 4 years ago wasn't even part of this conversation. The Nikon ZR arrived as Nikon's first true digital cinema camera, built around RED's color science and R3DNE RAW recording, undercutting the segment with aggressive pricing while delivering a full-frame sensor and over 15 stops of dynamic range. Independent comparisons running through 2026 have repeatedly placed the ZR as the strongest value proposition in this entire category, not because it's the most polished, but because of what it offers per dollar. The FX3 still holds one crown nobody has fully taken: low-light performance. It remains, even now, one of the most trusted tools in difficult lighting conditions, and Sony continues actively supporting it with firmware updates as recently as March 2026. That's remarkable longevity for a camera approaching its 5th birthday. But longevity isn't the same as leadership. 4 years ago, the FX3 didn't have serious competition in this exact space. Today, it's fighting Canon on one side and Nikon on the other, both newer, both hungry, both built with the explicit goal of taking market share Sony has held for half a decade. The FX3 II isn't optional anymore, it's necessary. And September might be exactly when Sony proves they know it. Remember that wedding shoot? That documentary in failing light? That cramped apartment has one window. The Sony FX3 earned its place in so many filmmakers' hands, not through marketing, but through trust built one difficult shoot at a time. That's the kind of relationship that doesn't end just because something newer arrives. It evolves. If the registration timeline holds, and if September really is the month, then Sony isn't asking long-time FX3 owners to abandon what they love. They're offering to deepen it. The competition from Canon and Nikon isn't a threat to that relationship. If anything, it's the reason this update finally feels inevitable rather than hopeful. So mark the calendar loosely around September. Watch IBC. And get ready, because the camera that helped define an entire generation of independent filmmaking might be about to write its next chapter. Some love stories just need a little time to grow. Subscribe so you're there the moment Sony makes it official. Thanks for watching.